People have fed into this narrative that the story is the greatest thing about the game and the #1 reason to play. They kind of don't understand that there can be different appeals. There's a video about speedrunning dungeons. Okay, I will open that in a tab.
Final Fantasy.
And I will watch these. Oh, tank balance. Alright, I just,
Hey everyone, my name is Link.
found a new YouTuber. Thank you, dude, for showing me this guy. This guy seems cool. I never would have found him, because I don't really follow 14. Or I'm at, like, a weird stage with 14 right now, because we're not raiding anymore. I think, like, I think raiding just really kind of burned me out recently. Because, like, I love the group that I play with, but holy fuck are there times where I'm like, guys, can we just stop being shit for, like, 3 seconds and do the fight that we, like, know we can do? What do I want to fight this with? Actually, this is fine. I'll do Lao Shang. I don't give a fuck. Not the most exciting fight ever, but... But I think, like, raiding recently has really kind of... Like, I'm glad that I don't have to raid anymore. I'll put it that way. Which sucks, because I love Shiva. I think Shiva is actually a really sick fight. Not accepting this random person. I don't know what they are. I think Shiva's a super sick fight, but I saw that Asmongold video where it was like him reacting to her saying why she quit WoW for 14. Wait, other way around. Why she quit WoW? Wait, I said that right? Yes, I said that right. Yeah, I did. I haven't watched it because, like, I feel like a lot of Asmongold stuff is, like, just super clickbaity. And I don't... And, like, I also don't... Because if I watch, like, 2 or 3 of his videos in a row, then I just start getting so many recommendations for all his stuff. And I'm like, YouTube, you gotta stop. But, So... Watched 2 of Zephy's videos and then said he doesn't want to play 14 because the community trashes his game. The Lynx did a response to that because he's just recently experienced it firsthand and saying he doesn't care about the story. Yeah, it is weird. Like, the community is, I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of things that people say about the 14 community that the community tries to kind of uphold. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm trying to think. Because, like, generally speaking, the community is very, like, accepting and nice. Like, I really have only met a couple, I can count on 1 or 2 hands the amount of douchebags I've met in 14. You know, whereas, like, I played Classic WoW for 2-3 months, and I can't even tell you how many I met because, like, everyone's a douchebag in that game. So, there's that, but... I just wish... My problem with 14... I think if the next expansion they release doesn't really do anything in terms of, like if they release another expansion and classes just get homogenized again like they did with Shadowbringers, I'll probably stop playing the game. Because, like, I really don't like how the game is just everything's a DPS. It's really boring. It's really boring. Like, even though I hated the people I played with in Classic WoW, it was nice that when I tanked as a warrior, like, I actually tanked. Like, my focus was on maintaining threat, so my squishies didn't get hurt, and mitigating correctly. Whereas in 14, it's like my focus is on potting and doing as much damage as possible. Like, you know what I mean? Like, tanks don't really have to do shit. And, like, maybe I should just go back to playing Ninja, but I do like the fact that tanks have to work with each other and or healers. But really, with Wrath of the Lich King, interesting. Because I've really only heard good things about Wrath. I mean, obviously, like, there were bad things about it that people don't talk about because it's all nostalgia goggles. But I remember hearing really good things about the classes in Wrath. Although I feel like the best time for classes in WoW was probably TBC from what I've seen. It honestly seemed like TBC was, and this is interesting. This is an interesting thought because kind of the same with 14. Like, I mean, it's not really interesting because it's very like, this is gonna happen every time. But game starts, it does okay. Like Classic WoW and Final Fantasy 14 2.0, 1.0. Let's not talk about that. 2.0 is pretty solid. Like, things feel good. The raids are hard, and it's not like super easy to play the game, right? Then TBC comes out. It improves on the problems with Classic, like making certain specs that are literally unplayable playable. Or not like literally unplayable, but, you know, unplayable enough to the point where people won't take you because in Classic WoW, for some reason, there's this elitism. Which, well, not for some reason. It's literally like elitism and I guess hostility is like baked into the core of the game. Like, the game is literally Horde versus Alliance. Like, there's a reason why people in that game are so like hostile towards each other. But you know, TBC comes out, it improves on a lot of the issues. Raids do get a little bit smaller, but it's honestly a good thing. Because 40-man raiding is awful. Like, just completely awful. Or, well, it's not awful. It's just, personally, I don't like it. I would rather get, like, a smallish group of people together that I can, like, kind of call friends and play with them. Because the social aspect of raiding is a big part for me. Whereas, like, when I raided in Classic with 39 other people in the Discord call, first off, I have no idea who the fuck's talking half the time. And then it's literally just everyone being quiet and like there's like 2 people speaking the whole time. And I was like, dude, this is dumb. But whatever. Also, this is riveting gameplay, I'm sure. But, you know, TBC comes out, basically is just a better version of Classic. And then Wrath comes out, and, you know, we won't have to talk about the fact that that's when Activision partnered with or bought Blizzard. Because there are definitely some decisions that Blizzard did that were definitely Activision's ideas. But, you know, I won't speak too much to the classes because I don't really know a whole lot about classes. But from what you're saying, it sounds like things started to get homogenized then. And that's when things like... Did Raid Finder start in Wrath, or was that in Kata? Not that I think Raid Finder is a bad thing. I'm just asking. Because I'm going to relate this back to 14 in a second. Well, I guess I can just relate it now while I wait for your answer. But, you know, so Then there's like Wrath, which is like the peak of WoW, right? At least in terms of like financials and everything. And for a lot of people, that's like when WoW was the best. And then after that, it starts to really drop, right? Like Kata didn't do as well. Mist didn't do as well. Even though, from what I've heard, Mist is actually a pretty good expansion. And then, obviously, Draenor was a fucking catastrophe. And then there was... Yeah, Draenor. Wait, Kata, Mist, Draenor. Then, yeah, then, whatever it's called. Legion. Legion was pretty solid-ish. And then... Oh, what's up, Major? Guess I'm watching ads then. LOL, dude. And then there was... And then there's BFA, and BFA is not great. So, kind of the same thing is happening with 14. Like, Raid Finder was after Wrath? Okay. Wait, why is that thing all the way down there? So, bring the player, not the class. One of their goals was to make bringing specific classes less crucial. I guess so you had more compatible raid options. Yeah, like, I like that oh, what? Wait, what? Okay. Okay. Like, I get it. They don't want people to pick a class, and then it's like, you can't raid because, like, people don't want you to, like, oh, you play a Feral Druid in Classic? Like, we don't want you in our raid. Like, that's stupid. Like, that shouldn't exist, right? But at the same time, if it comes at the cost of... Like, if it comes at a huge cost of, like, losing identity, I don't... Like, is it worth it? I don't know. I would say no. And I also think that, like, I would rather have things, especially in 14's case, I would rather have stuff be, like, completely unbalanced. Like, to the point where... Like, super unbalanced classes. But, like, have them all feel unique and individual again. And the same kind of story is happening with 14, where it's like... I mean, it's a little bit different, you know, considering the whole, like... 1.0 was just a catastrophe of a game. But, you know... How am I getting Facebook notifications? Go away. But you start with 14, you have... You know, we'll ignore 1.0. You get 2.0. 2.0 is good, right? And then Heaven's Ward is basically just a better version of 2.0, right? Like, they really sort of ironed out what they wanted rating to be in 2.0. And classes were still unique. Like, you know, there were things like Paladin was really not great except for, like, a couple fights. But at least the classes... each had an identity. Like, if you were tanking and you were a paladin, you tanked differently than if you were a warrior. Like, warrior, you were just like, okay, I'll just switch into tank stance and then do a bunch of damage and heal myself and then get my inner beast proc. Whereas paladin was like, okay, I need to make sure I have these cooldowns up because I don't have a cooldown that I can just pop all the time except for Sheltron, but back then Sheltron was only physical damage. So you really had to kind of play around Rampart. From my understanding, at least. I didn't actually really tank in Heaven's Ward. But, you know, those things were different. Whereas now, the only difference between any of the tanks in 14 is their offensive rotation. The only difference comes from their DPS. You know, Paladin is just keeping up your dot and just doing, like, your consistent damage. Warrior is all about your burst windows and fitting as many Storm's paths in before you reset I. Dark Knight is just budget warrior, which is unfortunate. And Gunbreaker is like every 30 seconds you do a ton of damage and then you do your... Oh, oops. Then you do whatever it's called. In between, and then in between, you just kind of do filler stuff with your ammo. I'm not paying attention because I'm talking. Sorry. So like, those things are all different, right? Which is cool. But the way you mitigate damage in that game is exactly the same. Like, Sentinel, Nebula, Vengeance. I mean, technically Vengeance is a little different, but not really. Like, not enough to make it actually matter. And Shadow Wall are all the same cooldown. Why do they have different names? Like, at this rate. Like, they're all the exact same cooldown. Exact same mitigation. Exact same cooldown length. Like, exact same duration. Everything about them is exactly the same. Except for the name and the animation. Whereas, like, before, it was like Paladin. Oh, okay, I guess we're sharpening again. Paladin was, like, the physical mitigation tank. If you did a fight that had mostly physical damage, like, Paladin really excelled. And then Dark Knight was the opposite of that. It was a magical tank. And then Warrior was just like, you slap it on to any raid group. Oh, this is not where I wanted to be. And you kind of go from there. Like, Warrior can do both, and then you, I guess, technically could, like, swap between Paladin and Dark Knight. Now, if someone just wants to play Paladin, it wasn't so bad. Yo, I also miss Warrior's fat damage. But, like, it wasn't so bad that... God damn it. That, like, Paladin couldn't tank magical fights. It could. I was in a raid with a Warrior Paladin doing Alexander. And, like, it was a little bit harder because we had a Paladin, but... we did it. Like, it was doable. Is it, like, super optimal? No, but, like, just because you're not being 100% optimal doesn't mean you can't have fun and enjoy the game and do things right. You know? So, like, I would rather have the classes in 14 be wildly unbalanced. Not to the point where, like, you literally can't play one of them or more of them. But I would rather have them be, you know, somewhat unbalanced, but have them have an actual identity again. As opposed to the four, especially with the 4 tanks, literally just being the same thing except their DPS is different. Like if I play Warrior and I switch to Paladin, there is nothing that I have to do differently in terms of mitigating. Like, nothing that I do in terms of mitigation is any different. Because they all have, like, a short duration, short cooldown thing with, like, you know, Raw Intuition, the Blackest Night, Heart of Stone, and Sheltron. And then they all have Rampart, Sentinel, and then they all have their oh shit buttons. And, like, their oh shit buttons are the only things that are actually, like, unique. You know? Like, so I've always had this idea of what they should do with the tanks. Okay, I'm just getting tossed around like a ragdoll. That's fine. They should do this with the tanks. Warrior should lose every single cooldown it has, except for Home Gang and, like, maybe Raw Intuition. And the way Warrior deals with taking damage is it has a lot of self-healing. And, like, maybe every time you enter Beast, you gain, like, I don't know, 2% of your maximum HP, stacking up to, like, 10 times. Or maybe 1% stacking up 10 times. So after you do 10 of them, you have, like, 20% extra health. And then the way you mitigate is just having this fat-ass health pool, and then you heal all the damage back up. And then, like, they could keep Paladin kind of the same way, just, like, it just kind of straight mitigates things. And then what if Dark Knight, instead of mitigating things with, like, just taking less damage, it just pops a bunch of shields, like Run with the Blackest Night kind of thing. And it just pops a bunch of shields. Oh, Lord of the Game, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Brew Hunters, where we apparently talk about Final Fantasy, not Monster Hunter. Well, salud, as we like to say here. But, you know, what if it was like that, whereas Dark Knight's just all, like, shield mitigation? And then Gunbreaker can, I don't know, maybe Gunbreaker doesn't actually really have any mitigation, and it just, like, helps other... Like, maybe it doesn't have self-mitigation, it just helps other tank, like, the main tank mitigate? I don't know. But, like, at least then they all have a unique, like, defensive identity. You know? So unless they, like, do some changes like that in the next expansion, like, I don't know how much longer I'll play 14. Because, like, the fights are really amazing. But the classes, you know, a big reason why I play MMOs is for the class identity and the class, you know, progression. And it, you know, I feel like it's losing a lot of identity. Because developers want to... I mean, I understand that they want to make the game super accessible so they can make as much money as possible. Like, that's a real thing. You know, and I think a lot of times people think that, like, oh, the developer wants to make money, like, that's evil. It's like, well, you know, if you want to play their game, like, they have to make money. You know what I mean? But I think there is... It's obviously a fine line, but I think it's very doable. And I think it's just, I don't know, people don't... Developers don't... I don't know what the issue is. Like, it's an issue between the player base and the developer. Like, it's not just the developer. Like, the player base definitely feeds into this kind of behavior. And I'm not talking about just 14's player base. I'm talking about, like, the player base of just games in general. I feel like there isn't enough of a dialogue between players and the developers, which is one thing that Blizzard's doing pretty well with the Shadowlands so far, with the alpha and beta, is they're like, you know, it's not just a matter of like, oh, they're listening to the players more. It's like they're communicating why they're making decisions that they're making and why they're doing that, so the player base can better, like, give feedback on it, you know? Well, I think it's because they, like, understand that if this next expansion fails, like, WoW is in a really bad spot. If they have another BFA, like, holy moly, that's a big monster, dude. Lao Shanlong is a big. He's a thick boy, you know. He's got a couple C's on that thick.